Welcome to Practical AI, everybody. My name's Jeff, and I'm with Peter Lynn. Peter, big topic this week is bias. And my question for you is, when does sort of the risk management or the corporate level risk management of alignment of models render them useless?
Very quickly, as you can see from Gemini and all the memes that are going around the internet about people putting in prompts and then getting stuff that just is absolutely wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, and some of the examples are kind of, outrageous. But ultimately, the buzzword is this concept of bias. So explain to us a little bit, generalization, alignment, this concept of bias, maybe where it came from, if you
Yeah.
can, and why it persists in AI.
So the term bias actually came from news reporters, not really from computer scientists originally, from my understanding, from my reading of the literature. Originally, the when ML with neural networks started getting popular, the big term, which is called the data distribution. So that's just a fancy word for like how different and how varied is your data. Because if you're saying, okay, recognize things in this picture, and you say recognize glasses, but you only give it sunglasses. Well, if someone's wearing a regular pair of glasses or some different design, it's not going to recognize it because it wasn't in the data set that it trained on because the distribution, meaning the variety, the variations was very diverse. And so you get a model that's only good at sunglasses now because you only had sunglasses in your data set. So that was the original issue of how good or how diverse is your data, and does that produce a model that is useful to you? And then that eventually got kind of twisted by reporters into like, oh, it's got a bias because humans are the ones creating the data set. And so obviously the people that are creating it have human bias. But ultimately, that doesn't matter because you can't make a data set that's perfect and you can't make an infinite data set. So that means you just got to collect what you think is going to produce a good model. Now, does that produce models that fit the data? Well, yeah, absolutely, because it can only be good at what it trained on. So this goes back to the question of generalization, meaning like, does it generalize the concept of glasses? Meaning that it knows the shape of glasses, but some glasses might be a different shape. Like you've got funny clown glasses versus regular reading glasses, right? So that means if you're training your model, you should have a wide variety of like shapes and sizes, like square and round, and maybe clown glasses, and maybe funny Groucho Marx glasses with a nose, or so it knows what the shape of it is. And so that's this term generalization, meaning did it actually learn the concept of the thing you wanted to learn? And so that's a really hard thing to measure today is did it generalize? And then after that is once you train the model, you can make it focus on certain things, which we call alignment, so that it's not a whole bunch of stuff, but you deem some things undesirable. So you want to narrow what it outputs. And so then you can refine it to ignore all this bad stuff that you don't want. So that's alignment. So really an aligned model is a focused, narrower model. It's actually less generalized.
Okay. So I think one of the interesting things about the bias discussion is that it's it's kind of critical at coming at it from both ends. And what I mean is that it's critical of the data set that is obviously imperfect
Yep.
and oftentimes over aligned to create bias. So that's one problem, right? But it's also the concept of bias is also kind of theoretically a problem if you had an infinite data set and had everything, someone could still not be satisfied and
Yeah.
claim that there's a bias in the data because it's not getting he or she's not getting the result that they want,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So is the concept of bias overplayed? Is it even is it even the right discussion in machine learning?
It's not. It's really not useful, which is kind of unfortunate because fundamentally the thing that we care about as humans is this thing useful? And this goes back to the question is, will open source win or will the big corporations win? Well, if you're Google and you're OpenAI, Microsoft, you want a gigantic model that serves everyone. But the problem is you can't. That's not possible because humans are different. And even the same person is different depending on the time of the day and how they're feeling. So like if I ask OpenAI a question today, but then I ask it a week later and I'm in a pissy mood, and it gives me the same response, I'll have a different reaction to it. And so does that mean that OpenAI didn't align their model correctly? No, it just means that I'm a human being and I have different reactions to the same picture, same stimulus. And so in that sense, it's really hard for corporate bodies to create a general purpose aligned model that's going to satisfy everyone.
It'll be over aligned, likely, at least aligned in a certain
Yeah.
slant, if you will. And that slant, um, you can either call it a curation or a sensor or a bias itself, is
Yeah.
going to be useless to at least some part of the users, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Like example for Microsoft is they align their models so that you can't generate images with the CEO of Microsoft, Satya, right? But you can of other people
Right.
because obviously he's the CEO and he can say, hey, I don't want our models generating images with my face on it. Now, does that make sense from the public perspective? Probably not. But for the CEO, it makes perfect sense.
Well, yeah, I much prefer the topic of usefulness over bias, and I
Yeah.
think it's a better way to frame the discussion, and it's probably a good reminder for us that there is no utopia. There are only some trade-offs,
Yep.
and in the concept of bias, we all lose. In the concept of usefulness, we can at least find some temporary middle ground, probably where we can be successful.
Yeah, I think that's where open source is going to win because if you don't like a model, find one that you like.
Well said. Great discussion, Peter. Thanks for informing us, and we will try to keep more good topics coming your way. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow, and we will see you next time. Take care, everybody.